And he says, as a tiny boy, he was compelled to torture the creatures. He knew he hadn't got taught this. That little 3-year-old, her mummy didn't have all those, she wasn't that clever at piano. This poor little torturer boy, he says a tiny kid, he was compelled to torture. Habits in his mind. Another kid, 3 years old, his mother told me, she was taking lice out of his head. And he was crying in compassion for the lice. She hadn't taught him yet. So the Buddha's view is sort of, in a sense, it's really, theoretically, it's quite illogical. Theoretically, you take the view of consciousness, you take the view of previous lives, you take the view of habit, you assume all these things, then clearly you come into this life with your own bunch of habits, Buddha would say that. That's the second way your karma ripens. Your own tendencies. They're not your mummies and daddies, they're yours. They might share them. So my mummy was good at music because she practiced music before. She said I was good at music, not because she taught me. That was one of the conditions. But I must have had the tendency to play music in my mind. That's the point. My mother's training helped. But the tendency to play music is my tendency. The tendency to be loving, the tendency to be kind, the tendency to be angry. This is Buddha's deal. They're our own tendencies. This is a massive point. This is such a massive point. So utterly different from our materialist view. Because we do track ourselves back into the past in the West, but we track ourselves back to mummy and daddy and grandma and grandpa and back to the monkeys, don't we? Do you understand? Yeah. This view is so different. You track yourself back into the past, but honey, it's your past. It's kind of powerful. Well, first is your humanity, due to your past virtue. Second, your tendencies, due to your past, good or bad. Why you kill, why you lie, why you want to kill, why you want to torture, why you want to love, why you want to steal. Habits. You come programmed with your past habits. Third is called, actually, so the first one is called, it's the main one. They call it the fully ripened result, the type of rebirth you get. In our case, human, as opposed to animal. Second is, they call it actions. You got some notes coming later. Siki's going to give you some course notes. We printed out some notes. So all these teachings are in the book, okay? In the course notes. So the second one is called one of tendencies. I think they call that the actions similar to the cause. Action here, meaning generally karma. Your tendencies, basically. A tendency similar to the past cause, which is having done that before. And that's in ordinary daily life. It's sort of fairly obvious. You get up today and you put your hands on the piano and out comes bark. Because you've trained in bark. You've practiced it yesterday and the day before and the day before. Well, Buddha just keeps tracking it back to a life before. And because nothing goes astray, you bring these habits with you. That's what he says. The third way your karma ripens is called experiences similar to the cause. And this is, we can see we're really social creatures, aren't we? We get born to a person. It's so intense. A human being gives us birth, it's extraordinary. We come out of a person's body. So then the way your mother treats you, how they love you or don't love you, your daddy, your siblings, your aunties, your uncles, your neighbours, your next door neighbours, the people down the road, the people who teach you at school. Up until now, we're very social beings, aren't we? Everybody's got many other beings in their life, including the rats that live in your kitchen. We've got this karmic history with each other, Buddha would say. And this is serious. It's not just kind of hippie, It's all described in the literature. Anyone we meet, it's not accidental, can't be random. Whatever they do to us, it can't be random. That's the experience similar to my having done like that to them in the past. It's not accidental. It's intense history we have with each other. People we love, people we hate, people who steal from us, people who give to us, people who lie to us, people who steal from us. We see all this. Everybody has beings in their life and how they see us and treat us, including the rats and the cockroaches. That's called experiences similar to the cause, my cause. Karma's pretty personal. And the fourth one is the most out there, the most broad. It's to do with the actual physical environment. They call it environmental karma, the way the actual physical world impacts upon you. So all actions, all positive and negative actions, have any of these four results. So from the habit of past non-conscious, intentional non-killing, the first result would be, let's say, example as a human birth. We got one of those. The second, like that little boy with the lice, was a tendency to not kill. He's 40-something now and he's never killed a living being in his life. So even as 3 years old, not only did he not want to kill it, he even had compassion for it. So we can deduce he must have practiced compassion. He must have practiced non-killing just spontaneously in this life. That was his result. That's the second one, the tendency to continue to not kill. The third experience of the karma of not killing is you live a long age. You live till you're ripe and live till you're old, and no one kills you. You don't die young, and you don't get killed. So we could argue, the Buddhist view is that the fact that we're still alive, it's like our petrol tank of morality karma hasn't run out yet. It's our past conscious, virtuous non-killing that is the main cause of why we're still alive, why no one's killed us and why we haven't died young. The fourth one, the environmental result of non-killing, is that whatever you eat makes you healthy, your body's really healthy, So that conversely, killing would cause to have a lower realm rebirth, like an animal or other kinds of rebirths. The second way your killing karma ripens, and look at the human realm, you might be born a human due to non-killing, but the second track of karma, you've got the tendency to kill. I think most humans kill something, even most religions, don't they, with respect, say it's okay to kill certain creatures. Like I was taught as a Catholic that God made the animals for humans' benefit. So it's virtuous to kill them. I'm not criticizing. I'm just telling you the different views. We can see most humans have a tendency to kill, and this is the tragedy, The third way killing ripens is as you die young or you get killed. I mean, look at the world. Look at humans. Forget the animals. Look at humans. Babies die. 3-year-olds die. Young people die. And they get killed. Look at the world, It's intense. And the fourth way killing karma ripens as an environmental result is, you're always sick, weak body, food harms you, doesn't help you. Like people eat peanuts now and die nearly. People drink dairy products and they die. Environmental result, polluted water, polluted environment. That's the fruit of past killing, the collective result of past killing, That's the Buddha's view. So all the way the environment impacts upon us. Our past actions is the main cause. The way how people treat us and see us, good or bad, our past actions. The main cause of your own tendencies, our past actions. The main cause of your own humanity, our past actions. So Buddha really does put us in the center of our own existence. All beings, all dogs, all ants, all monkeys, all humans, Buddha says. We are experiencing the fruits of our past actions. So if this is so, if it is so, it's pretty intense. And look how tragic it is, because nobody thinks this. We think everybody else is the cause. So Buddha says we know we're suffering, but we point to the wrong place for the cause. We should be pointing here for the happiness as well. This is the fundamental starting point of being a Buddhist, to take responsibility. Not guilt, not shame, not I'm bad, I want to kill myself. No, accountability. You look in your garden, there's weeds there. You can't blame somebody else for your weeds. They're your weeds, baby. So you take responsibility. This is the basis, the starting point of practice. Many people who are Buddhists, even who like Buddhism, don't ever talk about karma. Never think about it. But somehow from the bigger picture point of view, you can't understand Buddhism unless you factor in this concept, which is elaborate and great depth. And it's the basis. It's the answer to why. Why me? Why happiness? Why suffering? It's Buddha's explanation of why. And it's the basis of your practice. And then by learning to know your mind, these are the two kind of nuts and bolts of being a Buddhist. Understanding this law that determines the universe, that explains your experiences to yourself, answers your questions why there's suffering, answers your questions why you've got happiness, and because you want happiness and don't want suffering. There's nothing holy or fancy here. There's no discussion of compassion yet. It's for you. Then of course I want happiness and don't want suffering. So guess what I'll do? Of course I want oak trees and not weeds, so what am I going to do? I better learn to know how to determine what is an oak seed and a weed seed. It's kind of obvious. So I have to learn to understand, take on board as my theory what a negative action is and what a positive action is, and then attempt to not do the negative and to do the positive. It's kind of common sense based upon this concept. So in other words, this is the basis of understanding morality and ethics in Buddhism. Are we communicating?
Yes.
Again, we could spend the rest of the 3 days just on this, easily, without covering it. So another way of packaging all of Buddha's teachings in terms of practice, levels of practice, junior school level, is this one. Abide by the laws of karma. Basic, starting point, first level, junior school. Do you want suffering in the future, Robina? Nope. Well, honey, don't kill, don't lie, don't steal, don't this, don't that. A little checklist of 10 don'ts. I mean, there's a bigger checklist just to drive a car. Don't this, don't put the clutch on the accelerator at the same time, don't go into the wrong lane at 100 miles an hour. There's a million laws of just how to drive a car. Well, Buddha starts with just 7 little points as guidelines for how to be a nice person, you know, for your sake. For your sake. But what's hard for us, we can't get past the punitive, heavy, moralistic viewpoint when we hear don't do this. We're very deeply ingrained, like I said before, with the idea that it's someone from on high trying to squash you and tell you, you shouldn't do this, which means if you do it, I'll punish you. That view is very deep in our bones, and we really need to think that through carefully and realize that's absolutely got zero to do with Buddha's view, because he doesn't assert a creator, he doesn't assert a punisher. There's no concept like that, but it takes time to get past that, because ego buys into that view. So it really needs to be clear in our minds. Because it's like we're the boss. So the only reason, so okay, in the very beginning section, the very beginning then, if we ask, let's say we ask Jesus, what is a sin? Like I mentioned, it's doing what God said you shouldn't do. And that is utterly reasonable if you posit that view of a creator. It's correct. And the same in my mother's household. She's the boss. And if she says don't do it, she's holding the power to punish me, isn't she? Because you can see it's wise when you're a kid. But can you imagine, now I'm nearly dead, and I still don't go near the fire because Mummy said so, you'd feel sorry for me. You would hope by now I'd realise the real reason not to go near the fire is because it'll burn me, it'll harm me. That's Buddha's view. Doing what we could call a negative action. The very first definition in Buddhist terms of what a negative action is, or sin, they don't use that word, or we don't translate it as that. The definition of a negative action is one, for the Buddha, has got zero to do with the fact that he says it, which is the Christian teaching. I'm not complaining, I'm just comparing. Or the Jewish teaching, It's implying God's the boss. It's not with the Buddha's view. It's got nothing to do. Buddha would tell you the same as Jesus, or your grandmother for that matter. Don't harm others, behave nicely. But the reason for the Buddha, first he says, he defines a negative action as one that harms another. But the reason he exhorts us, he gives us instructions, advice, like a doctor, not to kill, is not even because it harms others. He says, guess what, Robina? It'll harm you, baby. And this is hard to hear. We can't get this one immediately. But it's so interesting, we know it when it comes to things like medical advice. Your doctor says don't smoke because you might get cancer. Well, first of all, we don't immediately go, how dare you tell me not to smoke? I can do what I like. We don't say that. We're grateful the doctor is pointing out the dire consequences of doing something like smoke. And then secondly, equally, when we go home and we notice that our doctor's not there, we don't get the Marlboros out and start smoking and go, oh, she can't see me smoke, I won't get cancer. You'd laugh if you thought like that. That's like infantile. It's like superstition. Well, that's what Buddha thinks about morality. It's not like that either. But this takes a while to think, because that's what we think morality is about. I'm going to get punished. I'm a naughty girl. Buddha says it's infantile. You punish yourself, baby. It's a natural law. This takes a while to think. So we have to analyse then, what is it about killing that will harm me? Because it sounds pretty abstract. What is it about lying that will harm me? What is it about stealing that will harm me? Because that's his first reason to exhort us to abide by these laws of morality for our own sake. Compassion comes eventually. That's more advanced. That's like university level. Are we communicating? This is like the nuts and bolts, you know, giving us the basis for why we would want to refrain from doing negative things for our own sake, for our own sake, for our own sake. So my feeling is, when we understand what motivates killing, what motivates jealousy, what motivates cheating on your partner, what motivates lying and stealing, it's obviously the negative stuff, the ego, the panic, the fears, the neurosis, all the ego rubbish. It's clear. You know, you don't kill out of love. I mean, there can be sometimes. You don't lie and steal out of love, out of virtue. These are things you do to harm others. But they end up coming out from fear and panic, you know. The dramas, all the dramas motivate this. So even if you forget future results, Buddha would say you sow those seeds in your garden and it'll eventually ripen in the future as your types of rebirth, literally. Literally. Well, forget that level. Forget that level even. If we could just look now, and I think it's so obvious to anybody with half a brain, that if you spend your day being angry, just think about it, it's so simple, or being jealous all day, what do you think you feel at the end of the day? You're completely exhausted, you want to go crazy. So it is so evident that if, say, the action of always speaking angry words is totally brutalizing you. But we're so crazy, we're so schizophrenic, we don't even notice, because I'm so convinced I'm allowed to be angry because it's Panos's fault. I mean, that's schizophrenic, you know. In other words, we're not even noticing that our jealousy, our depression, our attachment, our laziness, our anger harms us. This is the simple, obvious point Buddha's making. When we can get this, it can transform our lives. But we try to get off the hook, but it's not my fault. We'll say it's his fault and her fault. So we stay stuck in our misery. It's like saying, you know, I can't stop smoking, it's Marlboro's fault. And we do say that. We actually sue Marlboro. It's fine, sue Marlboro, I'm happy with you. But don't keep saying, I can't stop smoking, it's Marlboro's fault. It seems like it, doesn't it? But that's where we'll do anything to find a reason out there to get us off the hook. That means non-accountability. That's what guilt and blame are. There's no accountability. So this is kind of intense, to be able to take responsibility, to own our own mind. Not out of angry towards ourselves, not out of bitterness, but out of kindness. It should make us weep with compassion for ourselves. That our attachment and our anger and our jealousy, therefore our bad mouthing and our cheating on our partners and our stealing and lying harm us. This is the simple point that Buddha's making about karma, you know. But it's hard to hear it. We just hear it as punitive and as bad. You're bad, you're going to suffer, you deserve punishment, you know. This is the heavy way that ego works. It's so ironic. So really to hear don't this and don't that in a healthy way is so important. In just the same way, when someone says you might get cancer, you don't think they're punishing you. This is really kind of interesting. You're grateful they give you advice, you know. Don't eat this food, you might get a bellyache. The same as Buddha. He's like an advisor. He's not a creator. He's not a punisher. He's not a rewarder. He's an advisor. This is the way to hear it. It's quite different than how we hear other religious teachings. It's practical for our own sake. First level, junior school, entry level Buddhism. So it takes a while. This is the basis. What time is lunch? 1 o'clock.